Hello and welcome to a country lane near Ripley in Surrey, where I've come today to test out a theory of which shoes are best for marathon training. So I've got a selection of 5 shoes that I'm going to run in, and I've got like a 2-mile circuit which is fairly flat, and I'm going to run at what about is my marathon pace. So I'm hoping for a sub-3 marathon in February, so I'm going to try and run for about 6:50 mile pace and try them in different shoes. Now the first one I've got on is the Pegasus Turbo 2s here. I've got a Stride foot pod, so I think I'm going to try and run it on pace rather than power and see how the power comes up. I think my power will be about 290ish for marathon pace, but we'll check that as we go along. Now if I open my car here, these are the other shoes I'm going to try. So I've got the Zoomfly 3s, I've got the Hoka Rincons, I've got the Adios 4s, and then of course the likely favourite, the Next Percents. So right, I'll do a quick warm up now and we'll get going. Hello, so this is the details of the test course that I did. I've turned it into a segment called Tim's Testing Track. This location is in a place near Ripley in Surrey, which is not far from London in the UK. So it's all a road circuit on what's basically country lanes with very little traffic. So I chose it so that the course was largely flat and I wasn't likely to get interrupted by having to queue up behind cars and stuff. So the scale of this thing sort of suggests that this product is hillier than it is, but there is this little run in here, which is largely flat, and then Peppercorn Lane, it starts to go very gradually downhill towards the bottom here. Now, when I did the test, there was a slight tailwind here, about 11 to 13 miles an hour. So this bit was probably the easiest bit. And I did a right turn there, another right turn here, back up Polesden Lane. So that is slightly uphill and was slightly into the wind. So it's definitely hard on that back bit. So that sort of reflected in my times, which were a bit slower on that bit. And then I turned right into Tannery Lane, which is then more of a crosswind, and that was slightly downhill, and then turn left and then come back to where I finished again there. So if you have a quick look on Street View, so I started pretty much here by that gate. Now this is rather a summer's day. If I change the view to more of a wet day, yeah, it was a bit more like this yesterday. There's a bit of surface water on the ground. So you can see this is quite a narrow lane. In fact, when I was running, I actually held up a few cars. But as you can see, there's not much around. We've got no pavements or anything. So a nice place to run on, and gives me a good chance for a test. So there we go. Okay, so the warm-up done, 1 8-minute mile, so I need to run a bit quicker than that. So I'm going to try the Turbo 2s first, and basically going to go in order of which I think is sort of one of the racing shoes. So the Zoomfly 3, Rincon, Adios 4, then Next Percent. So it should get, in theory, slightly easier from midway, because the Zoomfly 3 is kind of made out to be sort of like the cheaper racing shoe of the Next Percent. The Rincons are probably the lightest Hokas, other than the Carbonates, which unfortunately I don't have, so I can't try those. And then we get into 2 racing shoes, the Adios 4 and the Next Percent, 2 shoes I've worn to good effect in the past. So I'm hoping that as I'm sort of fresh early on, the slightly heavier, more racer trainer type shoes should be offset by the fact that later on when I'm more tired, then the racing shoes should help. So I'm going to compare heart rate, power, RPE, all that sort of stuff, and report back later. So right, let's get on with the Turbo 2 test. Okay, first run done in the Turbo 2s. I think I averaged about 6:40 pace. It was slightly easier the first mile, slightly wind behind, and then the second mile just about 6:43 pace. It's not quite 2 miles, it's 1.9 miles, so it's pretty much bang on a 3k, which is a good distance. So now in the Zoomfly 3s, as you can see here. So these are the shoes I really think are probably the shoes that I think are the worst shoes I bought this year. But So let's see if I can get anything out of them. These are a lot heavier than the Turbo 2s. In fact, they're easily the heaviest of the shoes I've got on test today. So we'll see if we can get any sort of effort out of them. Okay, so we've done the run in the Zoomfly 3s. Very similar pace, if anything a bit fractionally quicker than the Turbos. I think it was about just under a 640 pace. It felt like quite easy to start with, and then sort of the weight of them started to drag a bit at the end, so it's kind of what I thought. So I have to look at the stats, but that did feel slightly harder, although of course it was my second effort, so obviously a bit tired after the first one. So now into the Rincons, which are these. Now I've worn these. I only worn these twice before on the treadmill, so this will be my first time actually worn them outdoors. But having a little spin on the treadmill a bit faster. Can't say they really suited me that well. A bit sort of. I don't really like this sort of lower hill drop. But we'll see how we go there. They'll be a lot lighter than the Zoomfly 3, so they should feel a lot easier to start with. So I'm doing about 4 minutes per intervals between sets. By the time I change my shoes, and I'll quick chat to you on the GoPro. So right, on to the next one then. Bye. Okay, run done in the Rincons. They felt okay. It's the first proper time out in them, but not actually send me into raptures. I mean, they're okay. I felt like a bit. I was having to work quite hard towards the end. Mostly lighter than the Zoomflies, but not really sort of shaped up for a great heel toe off, I didn't think, because I think the lower hill drop. Anyway, so I'm now in the Adios 4s, which is the first, I would say, out and out racing shoe, and these are definitely the most minimalist of the shoes that I've got on test today. So I'm interested to see how they feel, especially on tired legs. Kind of my theory is that with racing shoes on tired legs, are they actually going to be any better than the racer trainer type shoes earlier on? So right, so it's about 12.5-minute run, so we've got just about enough daylight left, I think, to get these done. So see you later. Bye. Okay, run done in the Adios 4. They certainly felt a lot lighter and more racy early on. The time came, so it felt conception that it was easier, but also I've now done 8 miles at marathon pace. So I've now got on the real big Berthas. Light's going a bit here, but the next percent shoes. So this is miles 9 and 10 of my marathon pace effort. So all being well, these should come up really quick, shouldn't they? Let's see how we go. Bye. Okay, so final run done in the next percent, and I think that was actually amazing. It was so much easier, it felt, than the other ones. I was perhaps going slightly harder, but I was looking at my heart rate, and I think in the end it was only low 130s. So when you consider that my math heart rate is 180 minus my age 53 127, I'm only just above it, running at I think I was about 6:35 pace there, so way under sub 3 pace, obviously only for 2 miles. But so we'll come back and have a look at all the stats and see what we can see. But on that evidence, I would say that the first 4 shoes, there was kind of more like, you know, sort of more around whether they suit your style. Like, I think I kind of like the Turbos, I like the Adios. I didn't really like the Rincon so much, didn't really like the Zoomfly so much. Next percent suit me well, and they seem to be, just on feel, that seemed to be the quickest one, but which is what you expect. But the purpose of this test is to see if we can actually get some data to actually prove that, rather than just sort of saying, oh, it's because Kipchoge wears them, it must be better for me. And don't forget, most of us are running at least an hour slower than him over a marathon, and a whole lot more besides. So thanks for coming along, and we'll come back inside and check out the data later. Okay, bye. Okay, so I'm back indoors now. This is actually the day after, so I've had time to analyse all the data, and I'm going to bombard you now with a load of stats here. Now I've got the 5 runs here in the 5 shoes. We had the Turbo 2s, Zoomfly 3s, both Nike shoes, of course. Hoka only Rincons, Adios 4, and then the Nike Next Percents. So what I tried to do on the first one, I was aiming for marathon pace of about 6:50. As it turned out, I actually run it slightly quicker, so like I averaged 6:40 on the first one. So then I sort of tried to make that the standard sort of effort for the rest of them. So you can see with the average heart rates here, obviously when I was fresh on the first one, that probably explains why that was slightly less, the 128 figure there. But remarkably, for the other four, I averaged exactly the same heart rate with almost exactly the same maximum heart rate as well. So although the effort was kind of marathon pace, perhaps a bit quicker, it wasn't taking so much out of me that I was kind of getting really fatigued. Now, I think the takeaways from this mainly is that the first four shoes, I mean, really, you could, this is the time for the whole segment here. And they're pretty much, you know, with an experimental error, because obviously I was still trying to run even pace and you can't do it exactly. Pretty much exactly the same, really, aren't they? I mean, the Turbo 2s was slightly slower, but it was my first one. I was just gauging the pace. But the rest of them really, you know, there's not much to choose between them. If anything, I felt the Adios 4 was slightly quicker. And then the Zoomfly 3, perhaps that surprised me more than expected. It just felt a bit heavy towards the end, but the stats seemed exactly the same. Now, if you look at these other times here, this is the times for the loop segment. So if we go back to the, this is the loop here, up Peppercorn Lane, Holsden Lane, and Tannery Lane. So that basically is the loop cutting out the run in and run out. So if you look at the times on here, it's probably a better gauge in a way because I was already like warmed up. I got into the effort. I was running more even effort. And so the loop times here are all within a second or two, pretty much the same. Heart rate's pretty much the same. And then for the other segments, Peppercorn is the sort of the downhill, slightly downhill, downwind one. Or when I say downhill, it's very, very slight. Holsden was back the other way, so slight headwinds, slightly uphill, and Tannery was a short bit, more of a crosswind, slightly downhill. So for the times out, again, pretty similar. Perhaps I was putting in a bit more effort towards the end. Maybe the Adios 4 was the quickest. Holsden, all the times are fairly similar. Tannery, all the times are fairly similar. But the big takeaway, of course, is when I put the next percents on, there's noticeably different times here. So stopwatch time is the time that between I started and stopped the watch, and the full segment time is the actual time from Strava on the segment to, just in case I had an error in starting and stopping my watch. But you can see that the next percent was a good 15, 20 seconds faster for what was basically the same effort than the other four. The powers are all pretty similar. There seemed to be a bit more wind for some reason on the fourth one with the Adios. Whether that's real or not, I'm not sure. But I think, you know, obviously I was going a bit faster on the last one, so that's probably why I got more power. I don't think you can read too much into the powers. Cadences are all pretty similar, 184 to 186. So I think the main takeaway is that next percent clearly has demonstrated this is the fastest. Not only was it the fastest, I also did that last. So, you know, I had the residual fatigue of running 8 miles at marathon pace, and these were also sort of miles 9 and 10. And all the other ones, basically, there's not much really to choose between them. I think it's probably a case of which ones you prefer. I think personally, I sort of prefer the Turbo 2s and the Adios 4. I didn't really like the Zoomfly 3, but having said that, I mean, it did actually do a lot better than I thought. It wasn't quite as bad as it sort of feels. It just feels really heavy and clunky. But the times aren't too bad. I think what would be interesting to take that on more of a hilly circuit and see whether the heavier weight going up hills is really an issue. So I might repeat the test on a hilly circuit rather than a flat one to see what I can see. But I think the takeaway is that this is obviously this is not the greatest of science, but I've got 5 runs here with very similar effort ranges, and next percent is clearly faster than the other 4, which I think it'd be very hard to put anything between them. I mean, if you really were pushed, I might say the Rincon maybe the slowest. The Adios 4 maybe the second quickest because I was already quite tired by then. But really, I think you're nitpicking and talking a few seconds here or there. So I think if you had any of these 4 shoes and you didn't have an X percent, then really it's just down to what you prefer on the day. So I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you on the next one. Okay, bye.